I love playing lesser-known openings to surprise my opponents and beat them because they don't know what to do. In this video, I'm going to show you an absolutely mind-blowing strategic variation in an opening that is incredibly familiar to all of us. We're going to play with the white pieces, so pay attention because this variation is going to bring you a lot of joy, just like it's been doing for me. Let's start with the bishop's opening, one of our favorite openings. You already know that the most popular thing here is to first develop the knight, gaining the initiative by attacking this pawn here. In many videos, we've talked about the bishop's opening, but in all of them, we look at the response knight to f6, right? Why? Because since we don't gain the initiative by attacking anything, our opponent might think, I'm gonna move this knight while attacking this pawn here. We've seen it in several videos on the channel. If you want, after watching this video, you can go check those out. Because in this video, we're gonna focus on what happens if they develop the other knight and also the bishop, which is one of the most popular variations in the bishop's opening. First, we're going to develop this knight here, and as I just mentioned, let's suppose they don't develop this knight, because we already know how to respond to that, but instead they develop this bishop to c5, which is very popular. Here, we're going to take advantage of the fact that we haven't developed this knight yet to play the brutal move. Pay attention, okay? Queen to g4. This is going to be our move, the one we're going to focus on in this video, because it's a move that's practically impossible to stop, especially if your opponents have less than 2,300 elo. It's a really strong move that's allowed me to win so many games. Sorry, I can't even talk. I haven't even had time to count them all. What are we threatening here? That's right, we're putting a lot of pressure on this pawn on g7. That's very clear to see. But we also have several hidden threats that your opponent might not even notice here, okay? The good thing is that since you've watched this video, when you play the game, especially if it's a fast game, you'll have everything planned out, and your opponent will waste too much time trying to find a solution that just isn't there. If I ask you, let's see, friends, how would you respond to this attack? How would you defend against the threat of queen takes g7? Because this threat is pretty strong. If our opponent right now says, well, you know what, I'll play d6, attacking your queen, and I don't care if you take here, we'll just capture on g7. And not only that, but this queen is going to be in quite a bit of danger. If they try to bring the queen over here, we could also trade, or we could even bring in the knight at some point, and that would be a total bargain for us. Sorry, the queen is over here. So it's clear that they should defend this pawn. Think about how you would do it. I'm sure very few of you would think of playing king to f8. Why? Because it's a move where we bring out the king too early, and we give up castling. It seems like a really bad move, doesn't it? Well, let me tell you, it's actually the least bad of all the options. So for all of you who thought of king to 8, you've got something going for you. It's the least bad move, to say that. But anyway, there's something here, that brings us a lot of joy in this position. Almost no one, well, of course no one, has ever answered king to f8 when I ask, but instead they always give me two main options. The first is g6, because it directly defends this square, but of course it has a downside, which is that this bishop will then be able to come in through the dark squares way too strongly. Remember well that when all the pawns are on light squares, the dark squares suddenly become a major weakness that we can take advantage of with our pieces, especially with knights and bishops. Which bishop would we use to take advantage of this? Obviously, the dark squared bishop. That's why a lot of people here say, well, this attack doesn't bother me at all because I have an extremely strong move, which is queen to f6. Not only does it defend the g7 square, but it also develops the queen in such an active way that I'm threatening queen takes f2, thanks also to our bishop. Get it? Here, I'm sure many of you would already be thinking, my opponent found the right move. My attack was useless. But let me tell you something. Your opponent is already completely lost just for having played queen to f6, which seems like the most logical move of all. What's our response? Defend this square here? No. All right? Our correct response is to make the following move. knight to d5. We're going to centralize this knight in such a way that we're creating two extremely strong threats. What's the first one? The threat to the queen. And what's the second one? The threat a knight takes on c7. We're attacking the king and attacking the rook, and we would end up winning either the queen or the rook. So it seems like this threat can't be stopped. But here you might say, wait a minute, Chester teacher, you're literally hanging your queen on f2, defended by the pawn, and now they're coming at you really hard. Plus, they always have time to defend afterwards. Well, no, because those are just hallucinations for our opponent. They're actually not threatening us with anything. Yes, they're giving us a check, that's true, we have to move the king. But once the king is moved, how would you keep attacking this king, this white monarch? There's no way, because the bishop defends these two squares, the queen can't break through, and there's no possible way to check our king. So let's think about something here. What are we threatening? Well, we're still threatening queen takes pawn, winning the rook. And we're also threatening knight takes pawn with check, winning the other rook. In other words, here, our opponent can't save themselves in any way. For example, let's look at the most typical responses and how to win immediately. Since they can't defend against either threat, a lot of people say, well, I'll just keep developing, bringing more pieces into the attack, so that maybe I can also jump in with the knights and eventually checkmate over here. But this would obviously be a complete mistake. We should simply punish this by taking the pawn with the queen, okay? It's important, if they bring out this knight, take here, but don't take over here because they're attacking our queen, we're threatening the rook, and we're threatening the knight with two pieces. In other words, the rook has to move no matter what, and once it does, this knight will be completely ours. And not only that, but once we capture this knight, we're also threatening knight takes on c7 again. So let me show you a possible variation that could happen. They have to move the rook to g8, threatening the queen. Queen takes knight. If they trade queens, then we would play knight takes queen, check, and we'd take the rook. And if they don't trade queens and move it away, we could continue with knight takes on c7, winning this rook. I don't want to drag out this variation much longer because it's pretty obvious, right? That we would come out ahead no matter if they play knight to f6 in any case. You know what a lot of opponents do tomorrow? They say to themselves, well, let me see if at least they don't notice in this messy position, and I'll play d6. Let's see if here they give me this check, I move the king, and they take the rook, and they don't realize that this bishop is aiming at the queen. So what should we do if they play this d6 move against us? Well, it's very simple. Logically, once again, capture this spot here, and with drastic consequences. Because you tell me, what way is there to save this rook? In fact, there's no possible way to save it. So logically, d6 is a mistake that's totally easy to punish. Now then, chess teacher, is there any halfway decent way to defend this? Well, there's a pretty interesting move that defends everything. Pay attention, let's see if you can find it. Whenever you want to study along with me, you can just pause the video and try to find the moves, and then hit play again, okay? And see if you got it right with what I say. The idea is that if we attack here and attack here, there's a move, once again, king to f8, the saving move for black in this variation, as you know, both at the beginning and now, which defends the g7 square. And not only that, but here we wouldn't win the rook either, just a pawn. Knight takes on c7, now the rook would simply move away and we'd have equal material, because we've lost the f2 pawn and they would have lost the c7 pawn. But friends, I'm bringing you here one of the secrets of this variation. Not only do we have the threats from this pawn and this pawn, but we also have a much more serious threat, which is the threat to the queen on f2, who tried to break in too aggressively. And now we can punish her with this tremendous move here, knight to h3. Our opponent thought they had everything defended, and now it's our turn to threaten their most important piece, the queen. Knight to h3, and as you can see, there's only one square available for the queen. If you can't see it, pause the video and take a look, okay? The only available square is queen to d4, alright? There isn't any other possible square for that queen without losing her. The idea is that now they're threatening our bishop on c4. A lot of you might say, well, here I play c3 and win the queen. Careful, because you're losing the bishop on c4. The correct move is to play d3. Very good. The sun's coming in through the window. It's a beautiful day. I hope you can see the board well. I think it should look fine, right? And if not, I apologize. How should black continue here? Be careful, because now the threat is starting to get very, very serious. If our opponent now makes a completely stupid move, like, for example, h6, right? Which does absolutely nothing. Any other move would be the same, right? We're threatening c3 now, and this time we win the queen. Why? Because this queen doesn't have any possible squares. So here, there's only one way to try to save this queen. And I'm going to show you in a game that reached this position, and white ended up winning in just a few moves. How did black play it? Well, logically, they had to give the queen an escape route, and they did it with this bishop move, bishop to b6, so that this bishop would solidify, how do you say it? Solidifies, or however you say it, with the queen, I'm not even speaking right, to give her that square bishop to b6. And now, if we played c3, this queen could simply move away. Do you see it? The bishop gave her that square, but now we have so many threats that we can keep putting on the pressure. Our position is fantastic. How the player with the white piece is doing. Rook to f1. What a beautiful move, right? It threatens the f7 square where the king is. And with x-rays, the bishop is also threatening it. The threats here would start to become too strong. For example, moving this knight away and coming in to give this check with the rook, when the king goes to capture this pawn with the queen, you win the rook. So here, black has to do something to prevent this kind of entry. The idea is that the main move would be to defend this capture here, and black did it with f6. And do you know how the white pieces finished the game here in a totally beautiful way? Exactly, knight. Takes on f6. Why do these kinds of sacrifices work? Because look, Chessraiser, a lot of times in my games, I sacrifice pieces and then I end up losing the game because I got a little too flashy. The clear idea here is that by capturing this pawn, what we're doing is opening lines toward the king. And when we open lines with so many pieces available, the idea is that it almost always has to work. And here, white calculated one step further. Here, it's true that you can capture this knight and still defend with the pawn, but here, white continued with this wonderful move, bishop to h6. So what does that mean? This knight can't capture the queen. Why not? Because it's pinned by the rook. Can this bishop be captured? Yes, this bishop can, and in fact it was captured. It's simply an exchange. You capture my bishop, I capture your knight. However, the game ended in 2 moves because the king simply has to move out a check. And now, let's see if you can guess the winning move. You can pause the video, and now I'm going to say it. Here, the winning move is the following, queen to g7. And there's no way to save this rook on 8-8. And not only that, but once this rook on h8 is captured, whether it stays there or tries to escape, we would end up delivering a tremendous checkmate. Pay close attention to this example because it's actually a game I played myself, alright? I played this position we're talking about here, and suddenly I hit him with this queen to g4, a very strong threat. I have to admit something. I think my opponent wasn't very prepared for this move. But honestly, who is prepared for this move? Had you ever studied it before? Probably not. My opponent didn't play queen to f6, but instead played the most logical move, g6, alright? This happened in a blitz tournament. That is, a fast-paced chess tournament, okay? g6 was played, and here you need to keep something very important in mind. You can't make the mistake here of letting your opponent play this move, d5, because you'd lose a piece, alright? If here you play, for example, knight to d2, just to say something, or knight to e2, you would simply lose a piece with d5. They attack your bishop and also your queen. So here when they play the g6 variation against you, which they will do a lot, you should do the following, queen to f3. It's that simple. You move the queen off the white bishop's diagonal, and not only that, but you're also threatening checkmate. the well-known scholar's mate, or the school checkmate, right? With queen takes f7. So here, my opponent responded with knight to f6. Good move. How should you continue once you get here, which will always happen when your opponent plays g6? My idea, and it's a very powerful one, is to play this knight to e2. Now you'll see why, okay? And now, for example, after the move d6, which almost always comes because they need to develop this bishop, you can do two things. Either let them play bishop to g4, which I actually love when they do because absolutely nothing happens, or if it really worries you, you can play h3. Nothing out of this world, right? You play h3 and they can't come over here. But honestly, I prefer to go on the attack. So what I did was play d3 to bring in my dark squared bishop. My opponent obviously saw the opportunity and came here to attack the queen. What do? I move it away. And now I'm going to threaten this bishop and be careful not to trap it at some point. That's why my opponent says, look, you know what? I'm going to trade this bishop for the knight. It's a logical idea, because since he has all his pawns on white squares, the light squared bishop isn't going to be that good. So here, I'm going to recapture with the knight. And now the position is getting really interesting. My opponent played knight to h5. I'll take him down in a moment, okay? Watch this beautiful way to win. This knight is threatening my queen, but I'm not concerned. I simply move back here and pay attention because I'm threatening checkmate again. So, well, my opponent castles, and now I come in with the bishop. Look at what a great move this is, and this is how you take advantage of weak squares, you see? I'm threatening the rook, which can't move. This rook can't leave because it has to keep defending the f7 square, since it's being attacked by the queen and the rook. So there's only one move to save the rook, and that's knight to g7. And now what? How does the game continue if it looks like everything's already defended? Well, here I go, h4. The good news is that we haven't castled yet, and this rook can join the attack by opening up the lines with h4 and h5. Also, if this worries you, you can always castle long at some point in the game, and you'll be in great shape. Pay attention, because here my opponent started thinking for quite a while and didn't know what to do. Suddenly, here they have nothing to stop our attack. So he brought his other knight to e7 to bring it into the defense. And me, well, I didn't even think twice. High five. If my opponent decides to capture with the knight, then I can take the rook. Thank you very much. If my opponent decides to capture with the pawn, then simply I'll continue with bishop takes d7, king takes d7, and this position will be completely winning, since neither the pawn nor the knight will be there, the king will be totally exposed, and it will end in checkmate. But that's not what happened in the game. My opponent said, I don't want to open up the whole position, instead I want to play, for example, queen to d7 and see what you do. But my hands didn't shake, and I started with bishop takes knight, king takes bishop. And now checkmate is on it. Look at what a beautiful move this is. h6, jack. The king can't escape, it has to go back, and now queen to f6 would end up winning the game, because the mate is completely unstoppable. They would have to sacrifice the knight, but it wouldn't help at all, because we capture it, and then mate would once again be inevitable. So, after this h6, my opponent resigned the game. If you enjoyed this video, and want more videos like this, all you have to do is leave a nice like. Right below the video, that's all you need to do, just give it a good like. And if you want to help me reach a lot more people, when you hit like, you'll see that YouTube has activated a new feature that says, do you want to hype up this video? So you hit hype, and you're simply helping me out, okay? It's completely free. That's just for those who want to help me. I hope you loved this video, my friends. Leave a nice like, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of my daily videos, and I'll see you tomorrow in the next video. Goodbye.